Good morning, all. Thank you very much for attending this live stream from LinkedIn event, and I think you'll get a lot out of today. I'm going to start now. I think we all know this intrinsically, but we now live in what we could best describe as a hyper-disrupted economy. We, as humans, receive so many messages a day, so many micro messages a day, that in many ways our prehistoric brains weren't built for it. We're over informed about information, and the current sort of stats are around 10,000 micro messages a day from email, signs, digital signs, traveling wherever you are. It's almost a super level of bombardment. And so this creates a problem for businesses that want to sell more and make more profit. So that's what we're going to dig into today. So just to sort of really encapsulate how we sort of got to this point is that particularly for businesses that are finding growth hard or hard work, margins, revenue, profits under pressure, total shareholder returns, poor cash flow, they're all symptoms of the larger problem, which is really about how to fix and restart growth. And for anyone who's been around this sort of game for a while, it's much more complex and often much slower than what many might advocate. And so if you go onto YouTube, you go into all sorts of channels, you'll find that, oh look, you do 3 things, or you do these 1, 2, 3 things, or 5 things. Often those are not evidence-based, and so some people can get caught in that sort of jungle and lose a lot of time and money. Now, you've already seen what you can learn today, and I just really wanted to sort of step through that rather than sort of going through each of those dot points. A little bit about me and also the company on which I lead is that we're very focused on helping businesses grow, and we effectively run what we call a connected growth accelerator subscription service. So what we're really saying is, hey, we've got all of these particular services that we've worked with from other providers that we work with to solve problems. So better staff for less, sell more and be seen more on page 1 of Google, and so on and so on. So we've got a very wide range of subscription services that provide growth. Now, I'm not trying to sell this to you. I'm really just trying to start the conversation about the next step that's going to happen after this slide. And so I'm just really sort of giving you a sense of that. In terms of my experience, I've had experience that, helping businesses between startups to 850 million revenue up to 1,850 staff, and, across many verticals. And so there's a real a level of knowledge, both from a sort of corporate boardroom type level all the way down through to operational frontline story. Having said all that about me, let's move on to the more important points. There is an example of what we call our strategic narrative, which is the connected growth accelerators. But let me come to that in a minute. Free implementation toolbox is what was advertised as part of our event today, and every attendee will receive one of these free. And I'm just going to cover that a little bit because it's really important, but I'm not going to cover it in any great detail because it's reasonably self-explanatory, but I wanted to make sure that I just sort of cover off a few parts. So this is a tier 1 global consulting firm, and the information is readily available, and you can see that there are actually talking about the 4 stages of growth, and you'll notice we go through some of these. It talks about margins, it talks about profitability, it talks about the end game, but most importantly it talks about the steps in which you, the founder or the board or the leadership team need to focus on in relation to each step requires a different change in the way in which the team, the leadership focus on. And so there's a lot in there, but we'll share that with you, and I won't cover all of that for you now. I think the key point is a really interesting one here, is that McKinsey, which is the world's largest consulting firm, they're sort of, I forget what it is, 10 billion turnover or something, but they're very large. And they came up with this slide a number of years ago, which was 75% of 2,000 global companies, which would be presumably many of McKinsey's clients, found that their current strategies will lead to failure. Lead to failure. So, and the reason that slide is there, and I might say McKinsey have taken that down, but the reason that slide is there is because it underlines the sort of difficulty that it's not just a one-trick pony. You just can't add growth to your P&L and say, okay, or P&L budget, and say, okay, we're going to go out and work hard to have growth. There's got to be informed decisions about how to grow. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. And I think that's really important because a lot of businesses say, oh yeah, we were budgeting for 5% or we're budgeting for 8%, and then say, oh no, we're now minus 3%. Well, the question would be, what were the other changes, the actual changes that you've made, increase in budget maybe, change of budget, change of technology, what were those steps, and have you built in the sort of changes where you can measure that quite quickly? Our experience, and that experience of many, many other businesses, is that there are often in many companies unseen gaps. So for example, we tend to find that you've got somewhere between 20 to 100 micro and macro moves needed to get the change in the budget. So if you're budgeting for 8%, that's not just going to be because you've got a great salesperson you've added to the team, or it's you're going to do a bit more in digital marketing, or it's going to be this, or it's going to be that. It will be 20 to 100 changes of levers all about the same time to get that change. And we're going to deal with some of those key ones as examples in the next few slides. The core part to this, though, is differentiation. Explicitly explaining to your ideal buyers and customers why they should buy from your business rather than all of your competitors. That question that statement sounds super easy to roll it off, but it's quite complex and it's very difficult for businesses of all sizes to nail that. So differentiation and explicitly explaining why. And what we found is that across the world and across Australia, there is this concept that a lot of businesses are still running on something that sort of happened around about the year 2000 and onwards, which was, let's talk about businesses that have a pain, a problem. So your pain is you're not making enough profit, or your pain is X, or your pain is Y. So you've got this pain or problem, and therefore we'll make these series of claims about how we can fix that. And the problem with that model is that as soon as you come out with your pain, problems, claims, competitors within minutes, but sometimes hours and days, but within a very fast period of time, can turn around and say, oh yes, but we do all of that pain, problem, and our claims are better. And so what happens is that the client or the potential buyer or the potential customer say, well, I can't validate this very easily. I don't know whether the particular brand A is better than brand B. I don't know if brand C is better than brand D. They're all making claims that sound similar. Some sound better than others. And so I really have great difficulty, the potential buyer, why I should buy from one business over another. And so we enter this world about saying, okay, how do we actually become very customer centric? How do we actually explain to customers or buyers or clients in a better way that actually captures their attention and explains the world in a better way, and they're likely to convert to being real customers sooner, probably easier and better. And so I think, so the next stage we'll actually talk about that, which is a strategic narrative. So what's a strategic narrative and what's it different to being a normal strategy? Well, today, what you say on your website and your vehicles and your buildings and your salespeople and every other piece of content you create is your strategy to win, your strategy to grow. And at the key part to that is it has to differentiate your business from your competitors. I mean, I think we've all sort of experienced whether you go to a vet or whether you go to the doctor or whether you go to a financial planner or an accountant. Why are you going to one over 100 other competitors? And how do you differentiate it? So if you don't do that differentiation for your customers, then you have this really basic problem. It's very expensive to grow. So how are the best done this in the world? And so what they've done is they found that there is a framework, and the framework is those are the best-selling books and movies of all time. So if you use that framework, it's a really much easier to capture attention, much easier to capture interest, and much better and simpler to explain what your offer is. So what that does, obviously, is reframe the why question. Why should they buy from you? And explains that in this format that I'm going to talk about in a second. Excuse me. Now, the people who really developed this is Steve Jobs when he was alive and the CEO of Apple. And Jobs found that you could actually, if you talked about the changes in the world as a big shift, and that there's an old game and a new game, then you can have a significant difference on people's attention, acquisition of customers, and so on. Now, we're going to go back to the sort of late 90s, and there's a company called Salesforce, and they, at that stage, had about 11 staff, and Mark Benioff was the owner, and he's still the largest shareholder today. Benioff found that he had about 10 staff, though, had a New York City office, and they were trying to sell CRMs. And it was really hard work. And somehow or another, he was able to get himself in a position where Steve Jobs at Apple provided advice about how they were reorientating their commentary at Apple, their strategic narrative. Benioff adopted that. And he also, at the same time, brought on a number 11 or number 12 employee called Tian Zhu, who later started Zora, and of course, history was made. So Apple, Salesforce, and Zora have all used the same model, and they now have become millions of businesses later. And so the key part to that strategic narrative is that you bake your business offer, you bake your particular event, you bake your products and services as part of a big shift. That there is a shift in the community, there's a shift in demand, there's a shift that's happening. And there is, as a result of that shift, there is an old game and a new game. Or it's life and death for the potential buyer. That is, your business won't succeed if you don't take on our product and services. Now, I'm going to explain that to you a bit later with an example of some of the slide deck of Zora's. So let me just rephrase where we're going to. Steve Jobs, Mark Benioff, and Tian Zhu proved the model that millions of businesses have now used. And at the center of that is that each of those created multi-billion-dollar businesses of their own. So Tian Zhu at Zora went on and left Salesforce. He started Zora, and his valuations for his businesses, multi-billion. Salesforce, Mark Benioff is, I think, $8 billion worth of shareholder value that he's created, and Apple's now the largest company in the world, if not the second. So, the framework is really important. So by taking this framework and applying it to your business, the advantages are you drive better attention, you acquire customers more easily, you've differentiated your business, and you've done it in the way in which the best-selling movies, books of all time have been created, which is this concept about a big shift. There's an old game or new game, so let's just take that as Superman, If you're watching Superman the movie, the big shift is there's kryptonite. He now has these superpowers, but kryptonite that gets close to him can kill him, so it's life and death, but he can go off and save people and so on. So the structure of the narrative, if you like, the strategic narrative that explains why your business is really critical to the potential buyer is the key to the story. So in relation to Zora, what Zora does is they actually provide subscription services and have done so for about 10 years. And they were ahead of the curve. And this is part of their old deck, so it's not the new deck, but let me just still keep going. And what they did is they said, okay, what's the big shift that's happening in the industry? And now what they were saying is, well, we can see that this is going to be a subscription economy. And so they started off saying, okay, we'll turn customers into subscribers. And we provide all the accounting and technology to allow that to happen for all of the businesses that want to go into the subscription economy. They then reframed about, okay, how do we tell people about this in a different way? How do we explain it? And there's quite a series of steps that takes you through how to build, present, and so on. And we do this work for customers. And so the best companies have reinvented themselves away from products to all about relationships, says Zora. And we also have this where, one of these slides, which is really critical, is, or what is the real offer? And so what they say is, look, we've built this unified solution for the subscription economy. Now, in doing this particular event this way, by building the, if you like, the sales deck and therefore the website, therefore all the communication that flows about Zora or Apple or Salesforce or your business, this way, it makes it easier. It makes it simpler. It creates content generation in a more structured way and tells your message and your story in a better way that attracts or makes it easier to attract and sell more. Now there's, one of the sort of top creators in the world around this event is a guy called Andy Raskin, who you should, go and have a look at his content. It's available on YouTube, etc. But he wrote an article which is, quite famous, in that Zora's presentation, Zora's sales deck, is probably the best in the world. And, it's worthwhile having a look at. Now, in our case, I'm going to use what we do at Accelerate as an example of a strategic narrative. I suppose the benefit is, I know a lot about it, but B, it helps to show our strategic narrative is about connected growth. And what it's really saying is you need a core, a strategic narrative that has already segmented, it's found your ideal buyers, it's tidied up your communication. And at the second level then is to say, okay, what are the products or the services that you need to build around that to get your message out better? And so our connected growth story is about, okay, you can be seen more on Google page 1, often within 90 days. And, we can do that on a subscription basis for, relatively small dollars per landing page. And the most important part about this is that there's already 220,000 users across the world. So it's a very proven type product. So connected growth, stage 1. The second thing that's really important for many businesses is that, you need incentives or campaigns or promotions or events. Regardless of whether you're an accounting firm or whether you're a financial advisors or whether you're real estate agents, you do need events and creation of campaigns, because you can swing up to 92% of potential customers, of people, saying that it does matter to their decision making. So let me recap. You've got the strategic narrative at the base. You've got, these 10 to 20 to perhaps up to 100 micro and macro moves that you make that captures more attention, that captures more engagement and delivers more willing buyers. And you, as part of that, create planned incentives or campaigns or promotions and events, because as humans, we are very persuadable that you have the potential to persuade us with standout campaigns. So as one of those events is that we offer particular industries, so they could be builders, they could be retailers, they could be financial advisors. But what we do is we create this story where, okay, let's find a great big prize that will completely decimate your competitors because they won't be able to compete. Let's make sure that it's very little cost to you and that it provides an enormous amount of attention. And so we're talking that, up to 100 times more organic attention as a result of having a great big prize. And so in this case, you can see we're helping builders, and they can offer a $250,000 prize, and it's insured. So there's no real direct cost. And when they win, when the customers win, in this case, that purchase price or the $250,000 win goes against the purchase of a house. So, it's possibly up to half price. So great big prize campaigns are really, really important. Another, excuse me, I'm getting over the last dregs of the cold. Another accelerator is social media. Now, a lot of you will probably do social media or social media management. Someone's doing it for you. But there's a difference between social media and social selling. And social selling is the tool that says, okay, let's use social selling. So it's creating events, promotions, campaigns, and content that is more focused towards creating leads, creating events that lead to customers buying, rather than just content that just hangs out there. And for a lot of businesses, just posting content a couple of times a day on a couple of channels, it's almost worthless. 92% have no impact. So to have an impact in the social selling world, you need to have increased velocity of posts. So the number of posts a day or a month is critical. Having something important to say, including promotions, campaigns and events, is important. So that's another one of what we call our connected services. This third one is about saying hello to what we call next loyalty. And what that's really about is that you can demonstrate that you can increase the profits of businesses by about 25%. This is a global piece of research. And that by focusing on using digital loyalty cards. So these are cards that effectively, like used to be when you go to the coffee shop, they had a piece of paper, they click, or put a bit of black texture on, and when you got to so many coffees, you get a free one. Well, the world's moved on, and so the new world is about, okay, how do we increase the basket size, the average purchase value of each customer? So increasing the basket size, increasing the frequency, increasing recency, so how often are they returning, and also increasing the new customer acquisition. So there's actually 5 tests now about how you can create that. And so there are different digital cards that go inside the Google wallet and Apple Pay. They go straight in. And so the ability to have those cards, and it also has the ability to communicate for free. So let's say you've got 1,000 subscribers, you've uploaded your CRM, you've dropped all of those names in, 500 of those have said, yes, we're going to connect to your new digital subscription cards. The advantage is that you can now, like an SMS, send them a message. And so the industry average is somewhere between 4 to 20 messages a month. And that has a huge multiplier effect on your revenue. And so it makes it easier to sell up, sell around, increase the average purchase size, and so on. Now, it's transformative. This is not just sort of a little add-on. At the center of this is you've done your initial work about, a strategic narrative, but this, along with some of the other steps, allows you to really multiply that, because now you've got a community that you've built, a community of subscribers that's come from your CRM. And so that community means that you no longer have to pay to get attention. advertising is paid attention capture. Now this community allows you A, to build it, B, to refer a friend, and do all the other things that I've just spoken about. And so it's critical that for almost all businesses, whether you be an accounting practice or whether you be a financial planner or whether you be retailers, that you build a community, because once you get that primary email address, once you can have communications that have advantages to potential buyers, then you've got a whole ecosystem where it's much easier to win and capture and grow. So I've done a lot of talking. Let me see if I can summarize. So we call this the growth pyramid, and at the core of that is the differentiation strategic narrative. Next up, we say, is that you find and fix the unseen gaps. And a lot of those gaps are things that, a landing page that is not SEO optimized, that Google can't find, and it becomes expensive to keep promoting traffic to that. You could have social selling, which is, a core. It is your TV station across every possible potential channel, from YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. And so social selling becomes the key to get to 7 to 10 different social media platforms effectively. And so on and so on. And so I hope what I've been talking about today, you can start and see that if a proper differentiation and strategic narrative was created for your business, you find and fix some of the unseen gaps. You add social selling. You add landing pages that are SEO optimized and can be on Google's first page within 90 days, often. And you add the community digital wallets, and you add the great big campaign. Then suddenly you've got the reason you will achieve, or more likely to achieve, an 8 or a 10% growth factor than if you just simply did one of these. So the key to the story is connected growth, and connecting all of these bits and pieces, but pulling those levers at once gives you a higher certainty of capturing growth, and it increases the likelihood and reduces the risk that you won't. Now, in our world, how can you make money effectively from what we do? So we create these done-for-you subscription services, which is, the great big campaigns, the social selling, and so on. Excuse me. For relatively low cost. And, they're some of those are world-class. We provide an advisory service, which we would rather call the engine room, but for most people, conceptually, it's easier to understand as the boardroom, which is really about helping a business, and we're doing this almost a one-on-one type process, which is really about the strategy. It's about creating a strategic narrative. It's about embedding guerrilla tactics to capture attention, and the exact steps to grow. And so that's it's a piece of work that's quite a multi-month event. We're also often called on to create mini and macro custom courses about how to achieve growth sooner. So we create a series of events for your staff. They may be marketing, they may be sales staff, where we inform them about how to arrive there sooner. And so those courses can be 4 or 5 episodes, but sometimes it can be 20 episodes. So if that is of interest to you, please contact us. And of course, one-on-one strategy sessions and so on. And we have a LinkedIn newsletter called Advanced Demand Generation, and you can grab that from my LinkedIn profile. Now, I don't really want to make that sound like there's any more advertising in there, but I hope that in this event today, you found some insights about how to drive your business, how to make it work based on research, and how some of the best brains in the world have applied the thinking about how do we capture attention of our ideal buyers better, and how do we make it easier when selling, whether it be in a digital format or face-to-face. So the key part to this really is about differentiation, and that's how 82% of shoppers differentiate, is based on better campaigns, events, promotions, and events. So, that's the core differentiator. So you've got to have the first piece of work, but then that on top powers, revenue, it powers profitability, it powers your next team, your HR. So all of this comes together to give you an integrated package. Now, I'm more than happy to take questions. If you want to just email me, drop a note on my LinkedIn page, and I'm sure and I hope that you've got a lot out of this. And if you have some commentary, I'd be really happy to engage with you about all of that. Thank you very much for today, and look forward to chatting to you soon.